Hey everyone, it is I, the mathematical enigma known as Maniacal Engineer. I have escaped the depths of the pungeon into which Rocket Queen had cast me, and have returned to host another exciting episode of Bulbacast. I'm right smack in the middle of my Passover cleaning at the moment, though by the time this episode goes live, Passover will probably just be plain over. Anyway, remember back in episode 4 when I suggested that we make an episode about our video gaming history because I'm old and still play Civilization 3? Well, the time has finally come for that episode. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's introduce today's panel, starting with Deanne.
Hi guys, it's Dragonair again.
Alright, Glik, how about you?
Hello, it's Glik.
LG?
Hey guys, Longer Room on here.
And finally, Saf.
Bonsoir.
Alright, so who's excited to talk about video games?
Yay!
Yay!
Alright, then let's get going with our very first question. What are your favorite video game genres? Saf, we'll start with you.
Well, my favorite kind of video games is RPGs. I like nearly all kinds of RPGs, and they're the games I play the most. I also like a lot of other kinds of games, but that'd be more specific games than a whole kind of games, like select management games, puzzle games, car games, etc.
Alright. Deanne, what about you?
RPGs and puzzle games are my favorite, and horror games where you can actually kill the enemies. I really love puzzle games, and sometimes racing games. Racing games are kind of cool too.
Alright, LG?
I really tend to like the action-y games, like Kingdom Hearts and Sonic and stuff. But like, if I want to like cool down or something, I'll just put in a puzzle game or something.
Alright, and Glik?
I generally like action games of varying stripes. Also big on fighting games, and I always have at least one first-person shooter I regularly play.
Glik, you and I are going to have some words later, but not right now.
But we have words right now.
Oh, I suppose we do. Anyway, I'm a fan of RPGs, platform games, and a few of the 4X strategy games. The Explore, Expand, and Exterminate, and off the top of my head, I don't remember what the fourth X is, but, those kinds of games. I don't game as often as I used to, but when I do, it's usually one of those types of games. Alrighty, moving right along, and obviously, take this question with a grain of salt. We don't want to be here until after Passover, listing all of these games, but, just talk about the game series that you've played or some of the games that you've played that really stuck out in your mind, either good or bad. So question 2, what video games have you played? We'll start with LG for this one.
Just to keep things simple, I'm just going to go with the ones I've played recently, like in the past couple of months or so, which has been Digimon Next Order and Hacker's Memory, the PS4 Ratchet & Clank game, Sonic Forces and Mania, and Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations, which I should really finish sometime.
Alright. And Glik, what about you?
Well, I think I'll hit the high points of my gaming history. First real game that stuck out was Sonic the Hedgehog 3 on the Sega Genesis. It was actually the second video game I'd ever played. The first one was Bram Stoker's Dracula, based on the movie Dracula from, I think, 1992, starring Gary Oldman and Keanu Reeves.
Did he know Kung Fu?
No, he didn't know Kung Fu. You played Keanu Reeves and you couldn't fight the enemies at all. You were having to navigate around them in this very Castlevania-like manner and collect these items, which you're not really told you have to collect. It's all very confusing, and it's a bad game.
Sounds confusing.
Yes. That was my introduction to video games. But luckily, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is very straightforward and good. So I didn't
Yes.
just throw away the pastime altogether. But Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is another big game for me. That's the first fighting game I really put any time into in the arcade. Seeing all the comic book characters you love, being able to fight Mega Man and other characters, it's really special to like a 10-year-old's head. Other big ones would probably be Final Fantasy VII. That got me into RPGs, though I'm not too big on them nowadays. Halo 3 is probably the game I've spent the most time playing altogether ever.
That's the aforementioned first-person shooter?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And games I've been playing recently are the Kingdom Hearts remasters, keeping up with Overwatch, and actually playing Stardew Valley, which is a bit outside my normal pace. A small farm sim, Harvest Moon style game.
All right. Deanne, what about you?
Well, I started with Duck Hunt and the original Super Mario Brothers when I was 3 because I am very, very old. But I was 3, so I cheated, and I would cheat at Duck Hunt by putting the rifle right up to the television. Let's see. Old school RPGs like Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger, Tales of Phantasia, Kingdom Hearts, Parasite Eve. I've played all the main Pokemon games except Black 2, which I didn't finish, and newer games like Guild Wars 2 and Far Cry Primal.
All right. And Saf, what about you?
Well, I played a lot of games of many kinds. I'm a big fan of Blizzard games. I play World of Warcraft, Diablo 3, Heroes of the Storm. I've played some StarCraft in the past. I like a lot of Nintendo games, nearly all the Mario, some Zelda, Pokemon of course, or I wouldn't be here. And as I mentioned loving RPGs earlier, I can say GTA, Tomb Raider, Metal Gear, Fallout, and of course Horizon Zero Dawn, but I'll come to that later.
You forgot to mention Ever Oasis.
Ever Oasis, yes, that's...
Our queue is going to be disappointed. None of us are going to mention Fire Emblem.
I never really got into Fire Emblem.
I only know the musics.
In any case, like Glik, I actually played the entire original Sonic trilogy, so starting with Sonic the Hedgehog and ending with Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I've played all of the main series Pokemon games, a couple of the side games, Civilizations 3 through 6, although mostly 3 and 5. The Mother series, Star Trek Armada 1 and Star Trek Armada 2. Some of the things that I loved playing when I was a little kid were the classic arcade games like Frogger and Centipede. I loved going to the local arcade and actually playing those on the arcade machines, which was really fun. The original Donkey Kong game, both on the PC and my Game Boy. A few of the newer Sonic games, Luigi's Mansion. I also have played Halo. I don't remember which one. It was whichever one my friend had on his console. And then the other FPS that I played was Team Fortress 2. And then I played Tetris and a lot of the Flash games on Newgrounds and things like that. And there are probably a few more here and there that I'm forgetting, but that's probably a fairly accurate history overall. So, again, a lot of the stuff I like and a lot of the stuff I play is older, but, that kind of just goes with my overall mentality. All right, so moving right along. What are your favorite and least favorite video game series overall? we will start with LG on this one.
My favorite series would have to be the Kingdom Hearts and Sonic. Kingdom Hearts, like, I really love the story and the characters, and modern Sonic is just crazy fun to play. My least favorite, I'm sorry, RQ, but probably Fire Emblem. It's the only game I can actually remember off the top of my head that I never really got into, even after playing it.
Tisk tisk.
Well, everyone, say goodbye to LG. It's the last time you'll be seeing him.
He's
Hearing
fired.
him. Fired for disliking Fire Emblem? Alright, that might have been a stretch even for me. I'm tired. Alright, Saf.
If we get him a fired badge, would that be a fired emblem?
I think it might be.
So my favorite series, I have a hard time choosing between World of Warcraft and GTA. I love them equally both. And least favorite, it's hard to say because most of the time when there's a game from a series that I don't like, I just don't buy another game of that series. So right now I can think of a series I really hate, only specific games.
That's definitely fair. I mean, you tend not to buy another game in a series if you dislike the first game so badly. And Deanne, what about you?
Well, favorites are Pokemon, obviously. The Chrono games, the Parasite Eve games, and I really like the Zero Escape series, which is a bunch of puzzle games. I can't say I have a least favorite series, but I hate games where you can't kill the enemies because running and hiding is so far from my personality.
Dragons eat people, yes.
Yes. I can't eat people if I'm running from them. I've also somehow managed to be alive for 34 years and never played a Final Fantasy, Zelda, Fire Emblem, Metroid, or Metal Gear game. Somehow. Go me!
Alright, and...
I mean, at least you didn't say
So
you
I'm not
didn't
as fired
like
as
it.
you are.
Well,
Very true.
I'm going to cheat and say one of my favorite game series is the Final Fantasy series, even though it's not really a series, since all the entries are completely disconnected and often vary wildly in their game mechanics. But I've played about half of them and had a good time with each one of them. And another one is actually what also Deanne also mentioned, never having played the Metal Gear Solid series. One of the worst series I've played is the Fable series. That's a video game series that, despite getting on progressively better technology and progressively bigger budget, gets progressively worse in each entry. It's incredibly disappointing, like most every Peter Molyneux game.
And what do you think they'll do with Metal Gear now that Kojima isn't here?
Metal Gear Survive looks really generic and sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Asset flippy? It looks cheap. People have played it, say it's actually enjoyable, and that the story is not quite on par with Kojima's work, but still pretty decent. But I'm never going to touch it, and I'm not liable to touch anything else they ever make. Because you play Metal Gear largely for the insane plots and the really, really fine-tuned action. And Survive isn't fine-tuned action, so I've no idea if they can still deliver that thing.
Alright. As for me, I've enjoyed pretty much every video game series that I've played, with a few exceptions. I do love the Sonic series overall, and I think all of the main series Pokemon games are at the very least decent, though most of them are very good. I really love the Mother series. It's absolutely amazing. You've got all these funny creatures to fight, and yet a very surprisingly deep plot if you're actually paying some attention. Of the Civilization games that I've played, I really do like the Civilization series overall. And then of those Flash and Newgrounds games I was talking about, I love the Henry Stickman series. They're really, really silly. They're really, really stupid, but they're a lot of fun. There are a lot of gags that happen in them, and a lot of references to other video games in them, which is really amusing. And I do like both of the Star Trek Armada games, although I do vastly prefer the first game because I love the plot, which actually manages to tie in very well to The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and even a little bit of Voyager, which is very cool. As far as games and types of games that I dislike, Glick, this is where we're going to have a difference of opinion. I really dislike first-person perspective games. And it's because I really can never seem to figure out how to find where the person that's attacking me is. You know, in real life, if I'm being attacked or if someone is throwing something at me or something of that nature, you know, I can feel it and I can instantly whip around to wherever that person is. But somehow in any FPS game, I can never figure out until I'm dead that the person that was shooting at me was right in front of me at the whole time. And again, you know, it's just because I'm not personally good at them. It has nothing to do with the quality of the games.
Early FPSs definitely had a problem with being able to detect where you were being shot from. Mostly the early games where the camera was also awful. Modern first-person shooters usually have some indication where damage is coming from.
I mean, even Team Fortress 2, when I tried playing that, I could never really figure out, and damage in that game can rack up quickly depending on where you are and what have you. But again, it's really just that I'm bad at it, not that they're bad games. I really did want to like Team Fortress 2 as a game because I love the characters, I love the YouTube videos, I love the story that surrounds the characters. But I cannot. You know, I'm not good at the game, and it's just, you know, FPS games in general are not good for me. I'd always get clobbered when I went over to my friend's house to play Halo. It was inevitable.
I don't blame you for Team Fortress 2. The Quake-based games are insanely fast that I've also never been able to acclimate to them.
All right, so I guess we're not going to have as much of a difference of opinion as I originally thought. But yeah, I mean, again, it's more so me being bad than the games being bad, and I think I've said that like 2 or 3 times at this point. You know, it is what it is. I acknowledge my own limitations and don't play FPS games very much.
LG and Emmy, you both said that Sonic is one of your favorite franchises.
Yes, I did.
Do you parse them as, like, separate the 2D from the 3D and treat those as separate, or do you actually like all of the series as a whole, like the last 8-year stretch of all full Sonic games?
I'm a 2D guy. My favorite Sonic game is still Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
I actually really like the modern stuff. I think it's just like all the fast pace that I really enjoy, but yeah, I really like the new stuff actually. Better than the old stuff actually.
I think at some point, they almost certainly overcomplicated it. You know, the original Sonic the Hedgehog, where you couldn't even spin dash, that was too little. But I think somewhere around Sonic 3 and Knuckles, with the different elemental shields and stuff like that, I think they kind of hit a good formula. And really, all of the 3D Sonic games that I played, you know, some of them haven't been bad. But just in my mind, they get far too complicated far too quickly. And you know and again, I'm very old school, so keep that in mind. So yeah, good question, Glick, and I'm definitely a 2D guy.
I would suggest Sonic Mania for you though, me. It's pretty much just Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Oh, well, I do like Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and a lot of the reason that I like it is not just the level design, it's the soundtrack. That's one thing that I love about the Sonic games is the soundtrack, and I think Sonic 3 and Knuckles was the first Sonic game where they had different versions or different remixes of the same zone theme for different acts of the same zone, which was very cool. At the time. Yeah, and then it was the first appearance of Hypersonic, I believe.
You mean the only?
Probably the only, yeah. I haven't played all of the Sonic games, so if you say only, then I'll agree with you only. But yeah, Hypersonic was absolutely amazing, and the idea of not only collecting the 7 Chaos Emeralds, but upgrading them to Super Emeralds, that was very enjoyable. Although the Find the Blue Spheres bonus rounds were a little difficult at times. But yeah, it was fun. I guess I'm rambling, so let's just move on to the next question, which is, what is the best video game that you've ever played? We'll start with Glik on this one.
Metal Gear Solid 3. Hard stop. That is one of the best games ever made.
All right. Short and to the point. Saf?
Maybe the game Serescent, I'll name it because it's still fresh in my mind, but right now I'd say Horizon Zero Dawn. There are a lot of other games I could say are the best I've ever played, but this one, because of the gameplay, the environment, and the lore, is the one I'd currently place at the top.
All right. LG?
Either Kingdom Hearts 2 or Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. 2 had a lot of fun stuff to play around with, like drive forms and stuff. Birth by Sleep had a better story and shot locks were fun. Since number 3 looks to be combining all of those things, 3's probably going to take that spot.
If it ever comes out.
Oh, it's coming out.
Eventually.
Hey, they released Final Fantasy 15. It can be done.
All right. And Deanne, what about you?
Well, my number one favorite game is Tales of Phantasia, the original version for the Super Famicom. I can talk, I swear. I didn't really enjoy the GBA port for the game because they screwed with the summon system and a bunch of other things that I just didn't like about it. But the PSP version is also good. I've beaten that game 26 times. It just does not. I mean, it's old, but it doesn't get old. I just still love it. And I still name some of my Pokemon after spells from Tales of Phantasia, like Tidal Wave and Flare Tornado.
All right. Now, as for me, considering the fact that I've ranted about it and raved about it in the past several episodes of Bulbacast, y'all will probably be surprised when I say that Pokemon Platinum is not my favorite game of all time. It's actually Mother 3.
What?
Now, again, like I said about the Mother series as a whole, there are a lot of really wacky elements and a lot of interesting characters that you can battle and a lot of interesting monsters and level up grinds and stuff like that you can do. And really, even beyond that, there really is this complicated plot that's playing out, and you're going through and you're battling all these pig soldiers, and all of a sudden there comes back Porky from the previous episode, or not episode, from the previous game, and you find out all along he's actually not able to attack you. And your final boss is just this masked guy, and really, the final twist and the ending of that game sticks in my mind. Where you learn the masked, your masked enemy's identity and how the game ends. It's just, in my mind, it remains one of the best video game endings of all time. And again, I'm old-fashioned, so, maybe there have been newer ones since then, but I like Mother 3 the best. I really do. Yeah. So a lot of different opinions and a lot of different perspectives on this one, which is good. And again, that's what we get for such a broad topic. All right, so the next question, we've gone for the best. What about the worst video game that you've ever played? We'll start with DN on this one.
Oh, well, this is a controversial opinion, but for me it would be Black and Black 2. Like, I hated Black. I went into that game cold, and I still wanted to punch N in the face every time he showed up.
Yes!
And then, of course, that time where he kidnaps you and sticks you in the Ferris wheel, I just wanted to shove him out of the car at the very top. Be like, bye! Have a nice
You
fall.
wanted to end him?
Yes, I did.
Mm.
I wanted him to impersonate a pancake. And like, I don't know, the rest of the characters aren't that great either. Like, Sharon is a total egomaniac. Bianca's just one big giant facepalm. And Alder is just plain useless. And that's just Black. I couldn't even be arsed to finish Black 2. I tried like 4 times and I just kept getting too bored to continue. I'm like at the very end on the boat or whatever. And I'm just like, nah.
I suppose that's fair. It's not for everyone. Glik, what about you?
Well, I said earlier that Bram Stoker's Dracula was the first game I played, and it's terrible. I can't really say it's the worst, because I was 3 at the time, so I can't give a very good, accurate description of its quality. But one of the worst games that comes to memory is, what was it? Batman Arkham Knight, the final game in the Arkham series. It's built bad. The design for it is just bafflingly awful. In the series, you're playing Batman, who is a superhero. He's a detective, and he fights people from the dark. He's all about being stealthy and ninja-like.
I hope most of us know who Batman is.
I don't know.
No.
But for Arkham Knight, instead of having you play Batman for the majority of the game, you're playing as the Batmobile.
What?
Yes. The overworld in that game is designed for you to always be in the Batmobile. It doesn't want you to run around or glide around on your cape as Batman when you're going from section to section. It wants you in the Batmobile for some reason, which you're blasting down these city streets in a big, pretty much a tank, and you can actually turn it into a tank at one point. And it feels like half the missions are go around the city and blast things with the Batmobile tank, which is not at all stealthy or detective-like or like Batman in any sense.
So, because it's an Arkham Asylum game and you're in the Batmobile so often, does it drive you crazy?
Oh.
It makes you drive yourself crazy.
All right, LG, what about you?
Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. I'd heard about the game and I still went and bought it anyway, just to see if it was as bad as people said. It is. It's awful.
What are you talking about? That game's great. You can beat it in 20 minutes.
It's just awful, though.
All right. Saf, what about you?
Well, I didn't like White to the point of not finishing it and not even bothering buying White 2. But to go as far as calling it the worst video game I've ever played, no, I wouldn't go that far. Since we're a Pokemon site, if I should say one Nintendo game that I disliked, that would be Miitomo, even though it's barely worth being called a game. Technically, that's one. So, but yeah, most games I could say are really bad would be mobile games. I don't think there's really one big game that I really dislike to the point of calling it the worst.
All right. As for me, I'm gonna disagree with DN and Saf, and I actually dislike X and Y much more than I dislike Black and White. But again, they're not the worst game that I've ever played. Even if I did get bored playing both of them and never actually finished. Um, the original Sonic the Hedgehog has not aged well, and like I said earlier, not even being able to spin dash means that I'm not going to replay that, even if I could at this point in time. But I do think at the time that I played it, it was a very good game. So really,
It had the very first one didn't really have the Sonic formula down.
it didn't. And the other thing about the original Sonic game was the level pacing was a little weird. Um, you had some easy levels like Green Hill Zone, and then your next one was the lava zone, the marble zone, with all of the intricate platforming and don't touch the lava and all of that. And then I think that the Spring Yard zone was pretty easy. And then the labyrinth zone was just all the water mechanics and you have to breathe and the bubbles and so just the level pacing was a little off. Like it really has not aged well, but I did enjoy it as a kid and I found it challenging. So that's I'm not going to say that's the worst game either because I really don't think so. I'm going to circle back and I'm going to say, at least for me, the worst game that I've ever played was Team Fortress 2. And it's because I had gotten so invested in the game. I'd watched and this was because of my former roommate from college. Was very excited about this, and he was showing me all of the character introduction videos. I got very invested in the game. The game finally came out. I start to play it. Oh, it's an FPS game. Well, let me try to get better at FPS games. It's been a while. Maybe I'm a little bit better. Maybe technology in FPS games has gotten a little better. So I sank a lot of time into it. I never got any better, and it became a very massive disappointment because I really wanted to like the game. But for me, it turned out to be a colossal waste of time. And, I don't like having my time wasted.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it's a very personal thing. It's a very me thing. But then again, I think everything is a me thing for me. So that's just kind of how it rolls. Alrighty. Speaking of rolling, let's roll right along to our next question. This is a big one. Single player or multiplayer? Which do you prefer? We'll start with Saf on this one.
Single player, definitely, or multiplayer, but only in cooperation. I hate PvP.
All right. LG?
It really all depends on what I'm feeling like at the time. Sometimes I like playing with other people, sometimes I just want to do stuff by myself.
Definitely
I do
fair.
prefer it when everything at least has the option to do it single player. Even if it's designed for multiplayer, the option for single player is nice to have.
Definitely fair. Glik?
Well, I like first-person shooters and fighting games, so I think it's rather obvious that I do play multiplayer pretty frequently. Though first-person shooters, I'm not big on pure PvP. I like the cooperative things. Like I mentioned earlier, I play Overwatch, which is team versus team, and also the various horde modes that several first-person shooters have, where it's a team of players versus a continuous waves of AI-controlled enemies. And fighting games, well, the only way to get good at a fighting game is to actually play other people, because the AI in those games are usually severely lacking or so completely broken that you can't possibly beat them.
All right. DN, what about you?
Single player. Even in MMOs, I'm like, get these people out of my game. Like
That I have to agree there. MMO games I've never been able to get into because you have to rely on people.
oh, not for everyone. in Guild Wars, you don't have to. I have done every single campaign, and I finished Guild Wars 2 also, except for the very last thing, which is a dungeon that you have to kind of have a party. But everything else in Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, I did by myself. So, yeah, if you want to play an MMO and you don't want to be saddled down by people, give it a go.
All right. As for me, definitely single player. I've said in previous episodes that I'm really not a very social gamer, nor am I really a very social person, despite what these podcast episodes might have y'all thinking. For me, video games are me time, and oftentimes I actually forget that multiplayer features exist. For example, recently with Ultra Moon, I was bemoaning the fact that it was very difficult to chain for shiny Pokemon in the in the SOS encounters, and I completely forgot that I could trade with one of my friends on Bulbagarden to get a Pokemon from a different region to shiny hunt using the Masada method. It's a lot easier, although not necessarily faster, if you have to hatch nearly 1,200 eggs to get your shiny. But yeah, I just oftentimes I even forget multiplayer modes exist, which it's just who I am. When I'm gaming, I'm in the zone, and it's a zone for one. Although I suppose if I'm playing Sonic, I'm even more in the zone than I usually am. All right, had to get that one in there too. Last but not least, in terms of questions, what is your favorite video game platform? And by that I mean, do you like consoles, handhelds, Sega, Nintendo? What is your favorite platform for video games? We'll start with DN on this one.
I used to be a big console gamer, like a long, long time ago. I have 3 PS2s. That's how into that I was. um,
Was that just so you could play Final Fantasy XI with yourself?
Hell no, I haven't played a Final Fantasy game. I thought we went over this.
Oh, sorry, then Phantasy Star or Star Ocean.
Well, I have a Japanese PS2, so I could play region locked games. But nowadays, I'm mostly a PC gamer because I have a nice laptop that's a gaming rig. I have an Alienware, so it's my baby. Yay! So, yeah, I mean, it's convenient for me. So.
And Alienwares are good. I've got one myself.
Yes. Yes, they are. My last one lasted 6 years, and it's still going, and I just sold it on eBay.
Nice. All right. LG, what about you?
I definitely prefer handhelds just for the sake of convenience. It's nice to just be able to bring them wherever you go. I will say, though, that it's nice not having to charge consoles.
Fair enough. Glik?
I've mainly been a console player. I never really had a decent computer growing up. My dad's computer was running Windows 95 up until 2003. Yeah. So, yeah, I actually didn't know what computers were largely for until I was 15, because we just had either this old ancient brick or we didn't have one at all. So it was mostly consoles. Handhelds, I don't move around a lot. I don't go places with the intention of playing a video game, so I don't get much use out of them. Like, the farthest I am from the television when I'm playing a handheld game is like on my bed, 20 feet away. So I don't get much versatility out of that. Yeah, it's mostly been consoles.
All right. And Saf, what about you?
Wait, I'm trying to translate 30 feet in normal units. My favorite platform would be my PC that I made myself, because I can do everything I want on it. And if we only count consoles, I'd say the Wii, because I had a blast with that tennis game, and because saying 3DS would make me pass for a Nintendo fanboy.
All right. As for me, I am a handheld or PC gamer. I really did love the old Game Boy system and I still do like the DS systems. I was not a very big fan of consoles, probably because I never was allowed to get one as a kid. But even when I did have one, either one of my friends was letting me borrow theirs or, I was over at a friend's house. I never really I never got the hang of the controllers, really. And I think that's one of the reasons why I always sucked at Halo, and that's one of the reasons why the other, of course, being that it was an FPS game to begin with. But, I never really got the hang of the controllers, and, I never had a good enough TV for that anyway. But so, I prefer the handhelds, and, again, those only got better when rechargeable batteries came around, just because they could last longer. You didn't have to carry around a pocket full of double A's or I think at one point even triple A's. And they had the backlit screens, which were always helpful. So yeah, as far as I go, I really do like the handheld games. I can play them in the car, I can play them on the plane. And, I don't really go places as often as I used to, but, when I do, I always bring one of my 2DSs along, or both, depending on how long the flight's going to be. So, it's a lot of fun. And I just, those are most of the games that I've played were handheld or PC games.
Did you have that magnifying glass that you put on the screen?
I did, actually. One of the things I considered doing, because I still have one of those and my original Game Boy. One of the things I'm considering is an authentic run-through of Pokemon Red on the Game Boy awesome. With the magnifying screen.
Oh, no.
That would be insane, even for me. But, it's just a thought. And we'll see where that goes. But so that's it. Yeah, I actually do still have a working Game Boy Color, a working Pokemon Red cartridge, and one of those little magnifying screens, which is kind of cool. I have to find them, but I know that I've got them. All right, so that pretty much wraps things up here. And I'm kind of starting to fall asleep because I've been going nonstop for about 13 and a half hours now. Hooray for Passover cleaning. That pretty much wraps up our discussion about video gaming history. I guess if you guys are watching this on YouTube, definitely make sure to comment in the video, under the video. Leave a comment that says what your favorite and least favorite video games are, and feel free to answer any of the questions that we asked this time. So as always, this has been a good episode, and thank you all for joining me.